Greetings mere mortal, my name is Sean and welcome to my lab. In today's video, I'm going to be configuring a site-to-site VPN from the Fortigates in my lab to Microsoft Azure. I'm actually doing this as a foundation to some projects that I have planned in the near future. But as a precursor to that, I need the IPSEC VPNs before I can go off and configure those projects. So while we're doing that, I might as well show you how to do all that stuff. So to explain the setup, we've got two sites. I got US East and US West, and in front of each lab, I've got a Fortigate firewall. So seeing as though the lab is on the US East and the US West, I'm going to go into Azure and I'm going to spin up some stuff in the central region. In order for us to configure VPN, we need something inside of Azure called a virtual network gateway. So that's going to sit over there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do VPNs into each lab like this. But before we can get to the VNET gateway bits, there's a couple of objects that we do need to create inside of Azure first. We need to create a virtual network, a VNET. So in the projects that I'm going to be tacking onto this later on, they're all going to be different things. So what I want to do is that the VNET, I'm going to do a shared VNET, and then I'm going to further subdivide the greater VNET into smaller subnets. So I'll call this the shared VNET. And the VNET needs an address space. So we're going to give the VNET an address space, something arbitrary like 10.171.0.0/23. Once we have the VNET up, we can then go divide it into subnets. And the first subnet that we're going to do is that we're going to put a gateway subnet over here. We're going to give that an address space of 10.171.0.0/26. So then we'll use /26 to divide up the rest of the things. So for example, we'll do a dev0 sandbox over here, and that'll be 10.171.0.64/26, and then you get the rest of the picture. So then once we've got those subnets defined, we can put on the gateway. Now this gateway subnet actually gets configured as you configure the virtual network gateway. So once we've got the VNET gateway up and running, we can then configure the site-to-site connections from Azure down into our sites, and then we can go onto each site Fortigate and we can configure the connection back to the VNET gateway. So now that we know all that stuff, we can step over to the desk and begin configuring the rest of it. We can head into Azure and we can search for virtual network gateway. We'll start by creating the virtual network gateway, and obviously we need to give it a name. So we're going to name this US Central-Dev0-Shared VNET Gateway. The gateway type is going to be VPN. It's a root-based VPN. Next, we'll choose the virtual network that the VPN gateway is going to attach to, and that's going to be the VNET that we created earlier on. So the gateway subnet, as we declared earlier on the diagram, we're going to make that 10.171.0.0/26. We're going to create a new public IP address for the gateway. I'm just going to name it the same as the gateway-IP so that we know what it is. Make sure you select a valid subscription and the location where you want it in, and click create. So once you click create on the gateway should take between 15 minutes and 20 minutes to be ready. Okay, so once the VNET gateway is provisioned and ready to use, we actually need to go ahead and we need to tell Azure a little bit more about our environment. So we need to go configure something which is called a local network gateway. And essentially what that is that it's just an object inside of Azure that basically you give it a name and you tell it the IP address of your gateway, meaning the Fortigate on your site. We can go into Azure and we can create a new resource, and we're going to search for local network gateway. So now we're at the point where we've got the VNET gateway, and Azure knows a little bit more about the sites that it's going to be connecting to with the local network gateways. Next up, we can go into the VNET gateway that we created, and we're going to create the connection from the VNET gateway down to the local network gateways that we configured in the previous step. Next, we need to generate a pre-shared key. So I just use OpenSSL, random, base64 string, 32 characters long. And I'll paste that in there. Make sure you document this because you'll need it later on. In the next step, we just wash, rinse, repeat that for the second site. Okay, cool. So now that we got the two connections, the connection status should either continue to say unknown or connecting until such a time that we go onto our site and configure our gateways to connect back into Azure. Next up, we'll go and log into our Fortigate. First things first, we're going to go down to VPN and go to IPSEC Wizard, and we're going to create a custom tunnel. We're going to name it Dev0 to Azure. The remote gateway is the public IP address that you bring into existence when you bring up the virtual network gateway on Azure side. And we're going to use the interface that is directly connected to the internet. Next up, we're going to use that pre-shared key that we specified early on, and we're going to change the IPSEC type to v2. Next up, you want to set the phase 1 proposals. We'll delete all of this stuff, and we're going to leave behind AES 256 SHA-1, triple DES SHA-1, and we're going to add AES 256 SHA-256. We're going to change the DH groups to 2, and we're going to change the key lifetime to 28,800. Next up, we're going to configure the phase 2 proposal, which is pretty much the same as the phase 1 proposal. I'm going to trash those, keep AES 256 SHA-1, triple DES SHA-1, and AES 256 and SHA-256. Disable replay detection and PFS, and we're going to set the key lifetime to 27,000 seconds. So at this stage, you'll have a VPN interface configured. However, the status of the tunnel will remain inactive until we go and create a route into Azure, which will be that 10.171.0.0/23 network. And we need to create a policy that will allow traffic both out of the firewall into the VPN tunnel and back the other way. Create a new static route. We're going to paste that there, and then we're going to say use the Dev0 to Azure tunnel interface. We can leave the administrative distance as 10, and we're going to give it a meaningful comment so that we know what it is later on when we have 10,000 routes on our firewall. Next step, we go to IPv4 policy and we create a new policy. Give it a meaningful name. In my case, I'm going to do Dev0 to Azure. The incoming interface, I'm going to select the private address space of the lab. Outgoing interface is going to be the tunnel interface into Microsoft Azure. A nice little tip for you: to create the inbound rule, we can literally just clone reverse, and it's just going to swap everything around. And go into the clone, give it a meaningful name, and don't forget to enable the policy. Okay, so at this stage, if we go back to IPSEC tunnels, you'll see that the tunnel has initialized and we have one active connection. So the VPN connection is up. To do a quick test, what I did is that I logged into my Metal as a Service region controller and I pinged an IP address in the 10.171.0. 0 range. And as you can see over here, we're getting a response from 0.4, and that will probably be the inside address of our VNET gateway. That's pretty much it. So at this stage, we've got a working VPN connection from our US East lab side. The next step is that we just wash, rinse, repeat the process. And then if we go into Azure, you'll see that the connection status on the connections will be connected as well. So that was a fun little easy exercise. Hopefully that video gives you a little bit more confidence or a better understanding of configuring site-to-site VPNs with FortiGates into Microsoft Azure. What I'll do is that I'll leave a link in the description for the article linking to the Fortigate cookbook, as well as the documents from Microsoft Azure itself. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.